Hare Krishna. Welcome to all the devotees to our third session on Bhagavad Cosmology topic. So, thank you for joining. So, in the previous class, in the first class, we discussed about how Privrat Maharaja divided the entire Bhumandala into 7 islands by creating 7 oceans which separate those islands. And then, among those 7 islands, the innermost island was known as Jambudvipa. And in the previous session, we have seen within Jambudvipa, there are 9 Varshas, starting with Kuru Varsha, Hiranyamaya Varsha, Ramyaka Varsha, Ketumala, Ilavurta, Padrashva, Hari Varsha, Kimpurusha Varsha, and Bharata Varsha, which are separated by 8 boundary mountains: Shringavan, Shweta, Neela, Mahaldevan, Gandhamadana, Nishada, Yamakuta, and Himalaya. So we have seen specific details about Ilavurta Varsha. What are the kind of facilities that are available? What are the different mountains, gardens, lakes, rivers, other things. And this is what we briefly discussed in the previous class. Also, we saw that on top of this Meru mountain, Lord Brahma has his own township in the middle, and surrounding that, the 8 direction deities, the Lokapalas, have their respective townships. In the east, Indra has; in the south, Yamaraj; in the west, I think Varuna; in the north, it is Soma; in the Ishana direction, Lord Shiva, like that. So different devatas have their respective townships also in different directions. So that is where we stop. And today we'll continue with the 17th chapter of Canto 5. The 17th chapter is entitled as The Descent and the Flow of River Ganga in Jambudvipa. So for this, we will take some reference from Lord Vamana's pastimes. So Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 8 explains about all these pastimes very nicely. So while Bali Maharaj was performing 100th yajna, if he performs 100th yajna, he will remain as Indra. But Purandara was already made as Indra. So in order to continue Purandara's tenure as Indra, Lord appears as Vamana, as the son of Aditi and Kashyapa. Then immediately goes to the sacrificial arena where they are performing yajna. Then he requests for 3 pairs of land, and Bali Maharaj agrees to give. Then Lord Vamana expand into Trivikrama. So with his left foot, he occupied the entire Bhumandala, which was like flat like lotus leaf, we have seen in the previously. And with his right foot, he occupied all the upper 7 planetary systems: Bhurloka, Bhuloka, Bhurloka, Sargaloka, Maharloka, Janloka, Tapaloka, Satyaloka. And his feet is extending so much, it pierces through the 7 layers of the universe. And the causal ocean or Karana ocean, which was there outside the universe, entered into our universe. So this is our Brahmanda. With 1 feet, he occupied the entire Bhumandala like this. And with the other feet, he occupied the upper planetary systems, and he made a hole in the universal shell. So the causal ocean entered into our universe. First, it comes to Satyaloka, the abode of Lord Brahma. So then, Lord Brahma collects the same water in his Kamandalu, and with the same water, he performs Abhishek to the lotus feet of Lord Brahma. So, since this particular water stream has no name, since after washing the lotus feet of Lord Trivikrama, it became known as Bhagavat Padi. So since it is emanating from because of the toenails of Lord Trivikrama, and also it is nothing but the Charanamurti water of Lord Trivikrama after Lord Brahma bathed his feet. So it became known as Bhagavat Padi. Then gradually passing through Tapaloka, Janaloka, Maharloka, it comes to Dhruvaloka. This is the location where Dhruvaloka is there. And in Dhruvaloka, Dhruva Maharaj accepts this water very nicely and worships it, because since it appeared because of the intervention of his worshipable deity, worshipable Lord Vishnu, Lord Trivikrama here. So, and Dhruvaloka is actually the abode of Lord Vishnu. It was previously known as Vishnu Pada. After Dhruva Maharaj came here, it became known as Vishnu Dhruvaloka. So since this water stream is passing through Dhruvaloka or passing through Vishnupada, it became known as Vishnupadi afterwards. Then passing to Dhruvaloka, it goes through the Saptarishi Mandal, then goes through Chandraloka, then goes to the top of Mount Meru. So exactly it falls in the middle of Brahma's township. Brahma's township in the middle of Mount Meru, top of the Mount Meru, and there it falls. And from there, it divides into 4 divisions. The 4 divisions go into 4 directions: east, west, north, south. So these are the 4 streams of the same water, goes in 4 directions. The eastern stream falls down from the top of Mount Meru and goes through the Jambudvipa and enters into saltwater ocean known as Sita. The western stream similarly goes to the saltwater ocean known as Chakshu. The northern stream, so known as Bhadra, and southern stream passing through all these islands, all Varshas, enters into saltwater ocean, that is known as Alakananda. So this is how, because of Lord Vamana's pastime as Trivikrama, the Karana ocean or the Kadal ocean, which was outside the universe, came inside our universe and passing through all the planetary systems, starting with Satyaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, Maharloka, Dhruvaloka, Saptarishi Mandal, Swargaloka, Chandraloka. Then it comes to the top of Mount Meru and then passes through all directions of Jambudvipa and enters into the surrounding saltwater ocean. Here you can see how it is on top of Mount Meru. This is how it goes into 4 directions known as Sita, Bhadra, Chakshu, Alakananda. In addition to these 4 main branches, there are so many other small streams about which you don't know, but there are many. So on Jambudvipa, how does it go? So in the eastern direction, so from the top of Mount Meru, first it falls on the peaks of Kesharachal mountain, then it falls on the peaks of Gandhamadana mountain, here the Gandhamadana mountain, and then from there it enters into Bhadrashvarsha, passing through entire Bhadrashvarsha, enters into saltwater ocean in the eastern direction. Similarly, in the west, Chakshu, the stream known as Chakshu, touching the Kesharachala mountain, it falls on the Malayavan mountain, then enters into Ketumala Varsha, then eventually enters into saltwater ocean. In the northern direction, the stream known as Bhadra, touching the Kesharachala mountain's peak, it falls on the mountain Nila. From here it jumps to the Shweta mountain, from here it jumps to the Shrungavan mountain, then enters into Kuru Varsha, passing through Kuru Varsha, it enters into saltwater ocean. Similarly, in the southern direction, Alakananda, touching the Kesharachala mountains, falls on Nishada mountain, jumps to Yemakuta, jumps to Himalaya, then falls in Bharata Varsha, passing through Bharata Varsha, enters into saltwater ocean. Same things, different images with different animations. You can see how it falls down.
Can you just show the previous slide?
So here, touching the Kesharachal mountain, falling on top of the Gandhamadana, it goes to Bhadrashva and enters into saltwater ocean. Then here, jumping from here to here, here to here, going through Bharata Varsha, enters into saltwater ocean. Similarly here, here also, so enters into saltwater ocean. So this is how in all 4 directions the Ganga flows through all the Varshas of Jambudvipa. So kindly understand, I have shown only the stream that is jumping here. It is not that only jumping like this. When it falls from the so much height, some water might fall inside the mountain, so that they will go to Ilavrata Varsha. Some water might fall after the mountain, so they will go to Hari Varsha. But those water which is falling on top of this mountain jumps. So whatever jumps like this, some of the water will might fall before the mountain, some part of the water might fall after the mountain, but those water which falls on top of this mountain, they again jumps and it falls on top of this mountain and then goes down, goes through Bharata Varsha, enters into, ultimately finally enters into saltwater ocean. So this is how we have to understand. Same thing, different animation images, how Ganga goes through. These are the 9 townships of different devatas on top of Mount Meru and Ganga's 4 streams. So they're coming down. So they flow through different varshas, etc. some close-up images. So here is one image. There are different directions what is falling down. That is coming to southern direction. If you happen to see here is a black line, this indicates the path of Ganga. Eventually it comes to Bay of Bengal and meets the ocean. So, and in relation to Ganga, there is another pastime in 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So according to Srila Rupa Goswami, Laghu Bhagavatam says that Lord Vamana appeared during the 7th Chaturyuga cycle of the 7th Manvantara. So currently we are going through 7th Manvantara period. So currently we are going through 28th Chaturyuga cycle. Out of 28 cycles, during the 7th cycle, Lord Vamana appeared and took away the heavenly abode from Bali Maharaj and gave it to Purandara. That was the time Ganga manifested. So Ganga has another name, Rupantarena Vahati. Sometimes it will flow in a visible way. At other times it will flow in invisible way. For example, currently we always hear about Mother Saraswati in the Puranas, but we don't see it, but it is still flowing, but in an invisible way. Something like that. Ganga also disappears sometimes. So it seems that when Sagara Maharaj was ruling, there was no Ganga visible around. So Sagara Maharaj was performing a sacrifice. Of course, he performed 99. He was performing 100th one. Indra felt insecure and stole away the hours. So Sagara had sent his 60,000 sons, which were born through one wife. So they went around, found, they could not found, they came and reported to father. Father told, dig around Jambudipa, because he was the emperor of the entire area. Dig around Jambudipa, you will find out. So they were digging around Jambudipa, but still they could not find. Then they reported to the father, and then father told, dig, go below the Jambudipa. So they started digging, and father told that all of you 60,000 sons, take one yojana as your responsibility and dig for one yojana. So 60,000 sons dug for 60,000 yojanas down below. Still they could not find. They came to the father. So when they came to the father, father told, still go down. So they still went down. Then they happened to see the horse in Patala Loka. So in the Patala Loka, this horse was tied to a pole behind the ashram of Lord Kapila. So these 60,000 thought that Lord Kapila only stole this horse and imitating like a mendicant here, sitting in a yoga posture and acting very nicely. So they raised their weapons in order to kill Lord Kapila. So according to Ramayana, it says that Lord Kapila opened his eyes. Just by opening his eyes, intense fire came out of his eyes, and that burnt all the 60,000 sons of Sagara Maharaj. So their bodies became ashes. You can see here their skulls and all. But according to Bhagavatam, since they found fault with the Supreme Lord, that offense increased the fire element within their body, and that fire burnt them. So they are all there. So then Sagara Maharaj was waited for a long time, but no one came back and no horse came back, no information about their whereabouts. He requested his grandson, the son of his son Asamanjasa. His name is Amshuman, and Amshuman understood where they went, where his uncles went. So following that tunnel, he went down to Patala Loka. There he saw Lord Kapila. He offered obeisances and begged forgiveness on behalf of his uncles, offered prayers and requested Lord's permission to take the horse back. So Lord gave permission happily. And then he requested Lord Kapila to deliver his uncles and forget their mistake and deliver them. Then Lord Kapila told that all your uncles will be delivered only if their ashes are touched by Ganga. And please get Ganga here. Then Amshuman went back. He delivered the horse to his grandfather. So grandfather completed the sacrifice. By the time, a lot of time passed away. And he made his grandson Amshuman as the next king. He went to the forest to perform Vanaprastha austerities. Amshuman ruled for some time. Then he made his son Dilipa as king. Then he went to the forest. In the forest, he performed severe austerities to bring Ganga. He could not do it. Then his son Dilipa also, after making his son Bhagiratha as the next king, he also went to forest in the Vanaprastha order. He performed severe tapasya to bring Ganga down. He could not do it. When Bhagirath Maharaj afterwards understanding that the importance to bring Ganga down, he went to Himalayas, performed severe austerities, and he pleased Ganga, and he also pleased Lord Shiva. So when he pleased Ganga, Ganga said, "I'll come down, but I'll come with so huge force. So who will reduce my force? Otherwise, I will put a hole to the entire Bhumandala." Then he prayed to Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva agreed to reduce the speed of Mother Ganga. So by the help of both Ganga and Lord Shiva, Bhagirath Maharaj brought down the entire Ganga down to Patala. By the touch of Ganga water, the 60,000 sons of Bhagirath Maharaj, 60,000 sons of Sagar Maharaj were delivered. So I don't know, I don't have anything, but at least we can understand that this tradition might have started from that time. Even today also we see all over India, any of our family member passed away, so their ashes are immersed in Ganga. So at least in North India, everyone can go to Ganga very easily. In the South India, we people go to Godavari. Godavari is called as South Ganga. So whichever river is close by, in one sense, all the rivers are manifestation of Ganga only. So in their vicinity, whichever river, holy river is there, they immerse the ashes in those particular rivers. So the original stream, which was created by Lord Kapil, Lord Vamana, was known as Alakananda, and the stream of Ganga, which was brought down by Bhagirath Maharaj, is known as Bhagirathi. So we can see these two mixing in Devaprayag. This is the picture of Devaprayag, in which both Alakananda and Bhagirathi both meet together, and afterwards the combined water is known as Ganga. So here you can see small the water coming. This is in Devaprayag. From there, Ganga goes through Rishikesh, and then eventually many places such as Prayag, Kanpur, Howrah, and Bay of Bengal, so etc. So that is about Ganga descent and the flow of Ganga through Jambudvipa. And in relation to the pastimes of sons of Sagar Maharaj, while they were digging around Jambudvipa in order to search the last horse, it is said that they have created so many islands around Jambudvipa, but out of them 8 are famous. So created by the sons of Maharaj Sagara by digging Jambudvipa while searching for their lost horse. So many islands were created, but 8 were famous. Their names are, they are given in Bhagavatam 5:19, 29 to 31. Swarnaprashta, Chandrashukla, Mandaraharina, Avartana, Ramanaka, Panchajanya, Simhala, and Lanka. So Ramanaka, the name of the Ramanaka island comes in Bhagavatam 10th canto. After punishing Kaliya, Lord Krishna tells Kaliya, "Go back to your home." So Kaliya told that, "Okay, I am afraid of Garuda." So Lord said that, "No problem, my footprint is there on your head. Garuda will not do anything." Then Bhagavatam says that Kaliya went back to his own home, known as Ramanaka Island. That comes in the Bhagavatam 10th canto. And in the Ramayana talks about Lanka, the abode of Ravana and all the other Rakshasas. So that is Lanka. Lanka is known as Rakshasalaya, the abode of Rakshasas. So it is like that. So many other names are there, but at least we hear these names again and time and again. So this is Jambudvipa. So the various islands created by the sons of Sagar Maharaj, something like this. So this is Lanka. Surya Siddhanta says that Lanka is located at 0th degree longitude. So that line which passes through Jaipur also passes through the center of Lanka. So Lanka is situated just exactly below Bharatavarsha, exactly in the middle of Bharatavarsha. So whatever we have discussed till now about Jambudvipa, various aspects of Jambudvipa, here we have a small video clip. I hope you heard the audio previously when that Devaprayag video came.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
In the center of Jambudvip stands the most extraordinary divine golden mountain called Meru. Meru is shaped like an inverted cone, and it is the sporting place for the demigods. Around Meru are many supporting mountains called Kesara. Jambudvipa is 0.8 million miles in diameter and is surrounded by the saltwater ocean of the same width. On top of Mount Meru is a resort of Brahma called Manavati. The famous celestial river Ganges descends to the center of Manavati and then flows out into 4 directions. Surrounding Manavati in the 8 directions are the resort cities of the chief demigods. One of these cities is Amaravati, the resort of Indra, king of heaven. King Indra lives here in majestic opulence, attended to by musicians, dancers, and reciters. In Bharatvarsha, the famous mountains known as the Himalayas are tall and immovable. Here we find an abode of Lord Shiva, the greatest of the demigods.
So, after describing how Ganga descends and how Ganga flows through entire Jambudvipa, then the 17th chapter goes to describe the specific qualities and comparative qualities of the 9 Varshas of Jambudvipa. So, out of 9 Varshas, 8 Varshas are known as heavenly Varshas. So, their qualities, etc., are being described. Out of the 9, Bharata Varsha is known as Karma Bhumi, or the field of Karma. Remaining 8 are known as heavenly places on earth. So it is known as Bhauma Swarga Padani. So according to Puranas, there are 3 kinds of Swargas in our universe. They are known as Divya Swarga, Bhauma Swarga, and Bila Swarga. So Divya Swarga is basically the combination of both Bhuvarloka and Swargaloka. So both combined together is known as Divya Swarga, that is heavenly heaven, and Bhauma Swarga in the Bhurloka and the Bhuloka, the entire Bhumandala except Bharata Varsha, the rest of the Bhumandala is known as Bhauma Swarga. So why it is so, we will come to know in the next slides. And the 7 lower planetary systems, Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, Patala, these 7, they are known as Bila Swarga, because there also there are a lot of opulences are there. That's why they are known as Bila Swarga. So now, in the previous class, we discussed about the different facilities that are available in Ilavrta Varsha. So Bhagavatam shows a sample what kind of facilities are available in Ilavrta Varsha. So we can understand that the similar kind of facilities are available in the other 7 Varshas. So including Ilavrta, there are total 8 Varshas. All the 8 Varshas have the similar facility that are mentioned in the Bhagavatam in relation to Ilavrta Varsha. So everything is naturally available. They have gold naturally, they have water naturally, milk naturally, curd naturally, ghee naturally, butter naturally, sugarcane juice naturally, molasses naturally, honey naturally, everything naturally available, because that is Bhauma Swarga. So all the 8 Varshas of Jambudvipa are Bhauma Swarga, and they will have the same facilities as similar to Ilavrta Varsha that we have seen in the previous session. So now, the special features of the people who are living in these 8 Varshas are briefly mentioned in this section. All these people live like Devatas for 10,000 years. whoever is born in these 8 varshas, by default, they live for 10,000 years. They have the bodily strength that of 10,000 elephants. Every person possesses strong bodily strength of 10,000 elephants. And they have their wives who conceive only in their last year. Out of 10,000 years, the wife and husband can live happily for, of course, 9,999 years. In the 10,000th year, the last year, they beget children. So the heavenly way of begetting children is that, so in this last 1 year, as soon as they come together, they conceive the child. Within no time, in small time, maybe within a muhurta time, the mother gives birth to the child. They don't have 9 months pregnancy period. The 9 months pregnancy period is reduced to within one muhurta. And then within another muhurta, the infant baby grows to youth. And the baby remains youthful for the entire 10,000 years. So the way to understand when their lifetime is ended means, if they start begetting children, that means that is their last year in Bhaumasvarga. So it is like that. That is how the children are begotten in this particular 8 varshas. And then the people who are living in these 8 varshas, they experience the happiness like that of Treta Yuga. So it is like that. So whatever happiness we hear from the Puranas, the people of Treta Yuga, what kind of happiness they were experiencing, that kind of happiness the people here experience. And I have mentioned 10,000 years here and Treta Yuga here in different color. We will refer back these two things, these two details little later, maybe today's presentation. So that time we'll cross check back here. But anyway, these are the notable characteristics of these places. They live for 10,000 years. They have the bodily strength of 10,000 elephants. They conceive, their wives conceive children only in the last year, that is 10,000th year, and they experience the happiness like that of Treta Yuga. So the other special features of this place, they live in beautifully decorated hermitages, surrounded by so many gardens filled with plants and trees bearing seasonal flowers and different variety of fruits. And all these trees are actually give a wonderful fragrance with which they remain healthy and happy always. And their hermitages are surrounded by enormous lakes filled with flower-bearing trees and chirping or sweetly singing birds. So all these flower plants and fruit plants, they have so many birds whose singing and cooing is very sweet to hear. And then all the Devata leaders and their wives who are living in this place, in this Ilavrta Varsha and all other Varshas, all these 8 Varshas, they along with their wives, they enjoy in these gardens and their glories are sung by other servants. Whoever servants are there, they will be continuously glorifying them, their wonderful activities, and they will continue to enjoy along their wives in these gardens and water lakes, etc. In the midst of so many wonderful fruit bearing and flower bearing trees, in the midst of so many wonderful, beautiful music of birds, etc. So in this context, in the purport, Prabhupada writes, the heavenly residents enjoy superior happiness, but never forget their positions as eternal servants of Supreme Lord. But humans forget. So one point in relation to the previous slide, I just forgot to mention. So it is said in the Bhagavatam that when a person performs unlimited piety, as a result of that, they will be sent to Divya Sarga, either Bhuvarloka or Sargaloka. After spending most of their piety, for example, 90% of their piety, with the remaining 10% of piety, they will take birth in Bhuvarloka, matlab in the Bhaumasvarga, in all these 8 Varshas of Jambudvipa. There they live for 10,000 years and experience intense happiness like that of Treta Yuga. And they spend 9 out of the 10% of remaining piety. And with the 1% remaining piety, they will take birth in Bharata Varsha. So like that we can understand. Those people who have gone to Divya Svarga, so on the way to Bharata Varsha, they will take birth in these transitory heavens known as Bhauma Swargas and enjoy unlimited happiness there for 10,000 years. So this is a transitory heavenly abode for the pious people. That is what is being mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, and then Bharata Varsha is the field of Karmabhumi, about which we will discuss in the 19th chapter. So starting from the 16th verse of the 17th chapter to the middle of 19th chapter. So Bhagavatam talks about the residents who are living in all these Varshas, Ilavurta, Bhadrashva, Hari, Ketumala, Ramyaka, Hiranmaya, Kuru, Kimpurusha, Bharata, they worship their respective Ishtadev. And those people who are living in all these different places are also mentioned along with their leaders. So in Ilavurta Varsha, Bhagavatam says, there is only one male residing there, that is Lord Shiva, along with his wife Uma. And Lord Shiva and Uma were served by billions of Yaksha ladies. And Lord Shiva continued to worship his worshipable deity, Lord Sankarshana. He offers so many prayers in the glorification of Lord Sankarshana there. And then in Bhadrashva Varsha, Bhadrashrava, the son of Dharmaraj, he continues to worship his worshipable deity, Lord Hayashirsha, Lord Hayagriva. In Hari Varsha, Prahlad Maharaj continued to worship Lord Narsingadev, he is Ishtadev, Lord Narsingadev. Prahlad Maharaj is there and is worshipping Lord Narsingadev. In Ketumala Varsha, Mother Lakshmi, being assisted by the Prajapati Samvatsara's children, the 360 sons and 360 daughters, in their company, Mother Lakshmi continues to worship her husband and Lord Kamadeva or Lord Kandarpa or Lord Padumna. She worships him. In Ramyaka Varsha, the present Manu, known as Shraddha Deva, his other name is also Vaivashvata Manu. He is residing there and continues to worship Lord Matsya. Because in his previous life, he was King Satyavrata and he was saved by Lord Matsya that time. So since then, he became devoted follower of Lord Matsya. He is there currently there in Ramyaka Varsha worshipping Lord Matsya. And then Hiranmaya Varsha, Aryama, one of the 12 sons of Aditi, he is residing here and is worshipping his Ishtadev Lord Kurma. In Uttarakuru Varsha, Bhudevi, staying there and continues to worship her Lord and her husband, Lord Varaha. The Bhumi personified, the Bhudevi personified, who was protected by Lord Varaha 2 times. So she is residing there and continues to worship Lord Varaha. And in Kimpurusha Varsha, all the monkeys of Ramayana, headed by Hanumanji and Sugriva, they are currently residing there. And Hanumanji and Sugriva, they are worshipping Lord Ram by offering wonderful prayers in Kimpurusha Varsha. And in Bharata Varsha, it is Narada Muni who resides there. And while teaching the future Manu, the Savarni Manu, who is going to be the 8th Manu, he is Narada Muni's disciple currently, teaching him. He offers his prayers unto his Ishtadev and his spiritual master, Lord Narayana and Rishi. Lord Narayana and Rishi were the spiritual masters of Narada Muni, and he continues to worship them, and he also teaches what to do, what not to do to the next upcoming Manu in the Bharata Varsha. So these are the different places, different Varshas surrounded by different mountains located in different directions, and they are the people and the leaders, and they continues to worship their respective Ishtadev, worshipful deities. So in relation to them, we can see all the pictures here. Lord Shiva worshipping Sankarshana, Bhadrashva worshipping Lord Hayagriva, and Vaivashvata Manu worshipping Lord Matsya, and Aryama worshipping Lord Kurma, Bhudevi worshipping Lord Varaha, Mother Lakshmi worshipping Lord Rishikesha, Prahlad Maharaj worshipping Lord Narsingadev, Hanumanji worshipping Lord Ram, Narada Muni worshipping Naranarayan Rishi, etc. So, in relation to Ilavurta Varsha, Bhagavatam says in this particular point that there is only one male person, and being served by Uma Devi and 1 billion maid servants, Yaksha ladies. So, but at other places in the scriptures, in the Puranas, there is a mention of different devatas coming to this place, etc., etc. So, how to reconcile that? So, Acharya says that within Ilavurta Varsha, there are so many mountains, etc. Specifically, here we have Mount Kailash and Mount Karavira. In this location, Lord Shiva resides. Lord Shiva resides in this Kailash mountain along with Uma and being served by 1 billion maid servants. The ninth canto, first chapter talks about that. So at one point of time, Lord Shiva and Mother Uma were in intimate moments. That time the Saptarishis, with a desire to having darshan of Lord Shiva, they goes into the inner chambers. So that time Mother Uma becomes embarrassed when they are in intimate moments, suddenly seeing the Saptarishis. So not to cause such kind of situation once again, Lord Shiva puts a condition there. In the future, if at all any male person enters into this area, they immediately turn into female. So that chapter talks about at one point of time, the current Manu, the Shraddha Deva, the Vaishwata Manu's son, Sudyumna, he along with his some of his friends, without proper knowledge, they entered into this area. So he turned into a female. Her name became known as Ila. Later on, she was married by Buddha, the son of Chandra, moon god. And she gave birth to a wonderful son known as Pururava. His other name is Aila, because he is the son of Ila. He is known as Aila. Bhagavatam 11th canto, there is a chapter on his name, Aila Gita, etc. So that is connected to this one. So in this particular place, no male is allowed. If at all a male enters without knowledge, they turn into female. So only one male is allowed to stay here is Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva stays in this Kailasha mountain. And Bhagavatam says that at a later part, the Devatas and Asuras, with an intention to churn the milk ocean, they came to this Ilavata Varsha. They wanted to use this Mandara mountain for churning the milk ocean. So if you remember, in the first session we discussed the 7 islands were separated by 7 oceans. The 5th ocean was the milk ocean. So that is where the Devatas and Asuras wanted to take this mountain and churn the milk ocean. So, but they could not take it further because this mountain is made up of gold. Gold means very heavy, highly dense material. So all of them were crushed by the mountain. Then Lord Vishnu comes on top of Garuda. So lifts this mountain, keeps it on the back of Garuda and rejuvenates all the Devatas and Asuras, tells them to board on the Garuda. And Lord Vishnu takes the mountain, Asuras, Devatas to the bank of milk ocean and allows them to churn the milk ocean, etc. So that mountain is this one. And after the episode is over, again they brought back the mountain, kept it here. So Lord Shiva is worshipping his deity, Lord Sankarsana with this Ilavata Varsha. And this is the Mandara mountain used for churning the milk ocean. And this is King Satyavrata was protected by Lord Matsya in the previous life during Chakshushi Manvantara. So these are different images of that past time. And here we have all the monkeys who helped Lord Ram to bridge, to construct a bridge from Rameshwaram all the way up to Lanka, the abode of Rakshasas. So that bridge, we can see the remnants of that bridge in Rameshwaram even today, at the place known as Dhanushkoti. So, etc. So having discussed about all these things, all the prayers and all what I can say, the different characteristics of the 8 heavenly Varshas and comparative study of Bharata Varsha and the descent of Ganga. Then Bhagavatam at the end goes to describe the Bharata Varsha. Starting from verse number 62 to the end of this chapter, it talks about Bharata Varsha. So before starting the discussion of Bharata Varsha, any queries based on the discussion till now?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah, yes, quickly.
Yeah, Prabhuji. The lifespan which was said in the Bhaumaswarga 10,000 years is according to the human calculations of Bharata Varsha or according to the celestials?
According to our calculations. All throughout the Bhumandala, the time is same. It will not change. Okay. Our day is 12 hours, their day also 12 hours. It is same all throughout the Bhumandala. So it is 10,000 years according to our calculations.
Okay, only the lifespan in Bharata Varsha is reduced to 100 years, whereas the other places it's 10,000 years.
Yeah, yes. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandot Pranam. Prabhuji, you earlier mentioned about that remaining that 1% 5G. So after enjoying in that Deepaloga and all, and then we come back to this Bharata Varsha. I mean, can this elaborate on that, Prabhuji? So why do we come back? Because this place of karma. So how come we are going to enjoy? I mean, in relation to that, for some understanding. So what is exactly the
Oh, I'm
why
extremely
they're coming
sorry.
back?
I could not get your question because your voice is not clear. So
Okay, Prabhuji, 1 second. I'll just
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, is it audible now?
yeah, now it is very clear.
Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, you were talking earlier about that, so that in any soul we have this 100% piety, so that we remain like 90% of it we enjoy in that Divya Swarga, and later we come back, and then later 1% we just fall to this Bharat Varsha, we take birth for remaining 1%. So can you
Yes.
just elaborate on it? So why do we come back here? And
No,
what?
I just gave that numbers. No, it is very simple. Bhagavad
Okay.
Gita 9th chapter, it is clearly says, Tetam bhuktva sargalokam vishalam kshine punya martilokam vishanti. When people perform piety, as a result of that, they will be sent to Swarga. They exhaust
Okay.
piety there. Once piety is over, they cannot stay anymore there. They have to come back. Just for example,
Okay.
any person goes to abroad with a business visa or something, tourism visa, 6 months permit is there. 6 months are over, they need to come back and renew the visa.
Yeah, but okay.
Something, some practical example. It is natural. So out of which maximum they spend in they spend maximum piety in the Divya Swarga. So with the remaining piety, they come to Bhauma Swarga, and after spending that also, and with whatever remaining, with that they come down and take birth in the Bharata Varsha.
But Prabhuji, I mean, relating to this particular thing, so you said when Prabhupada has said in Bharat Varsha alone, we forget our position with the Supreme Lord. So if we do piety and we're going to come back here, and what if we forget, and in like what ways is this arrangement like? I just want to understand, Prabhuji.
No,
Like-
that point is not about going and coming. That point is about in
Okay.
Bharata Varsha, of course, in near around us. If somebody is having all these facilities, naturally they say that it is all mine. It is meant for my enjoyment. Janmaishwara Shrivir Yedamana Madapamana, the Mother Kunti says.
Yeah.
We have so many people around us. There are only few rich people, they are pious, but many of them, they simply want to enjoy. They say that I inherited this money, this is meant for my enjoyment. They lavishly enjoy.
Okay.
As Kunti Maharani says. So, keeping that in mind, Prabhupada says that. But in these abodes, in spite of having all these wonderful facilities, they are still worshipping the Lord, as we have seen in the chart, that all the different people are worshipping their respective deities. So, in that way. So, that is in relation to the leaders. But there also, there could be people who are simply want to enjoy, and then after the enjoyment is over, they'll come back again to Bharata Varsha. Again, we are perform piety, perform dharmic activities and encash piety, and then again go to Swarga.
Okay.
As we again read in the Bhagavad Gita 2nd chapter, what is that? Kriya Vishesha Bahulam Bhogaishwarya Gatim Prati.
Okay. So it means that only in this Bharat Varsha, once the soul comes, we are accumulating karma. But then when we are there in all the other Varshas, so we don't accumulate karma because we remember our position and we are serving the Lord. Is it so, Prabhuji?
I would
Like
add on to it. Generally, for a few, especially the leaders and few fortunate souls, they do remember everything, that they are the surrendered souls of the Lord. The main people who are living in those areas, they do remember that they are the devoted servants of the Supreme Lord, like Prahlad Maharaj and all the Hanuman, etc. But those people who just go there to enjoy as a result of their piety, they just enjoy. Once their enjoyment is over, they come down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. About this, actually, we will discuss a little later in our discussion when we come to the discussion of Swarga and heavenly abodes, etc. Even in heaven, also, there are two categories of people. One category of people are naturally supposed to stay there, whose lifespan is around 1 Manvantara period. In the actual heaven, the main devatas who are responsible for looking at our maintenance and all, they live for 1 Manvantara period. But those people, those jivas who go as a result of their piety, when they go to heaven, they simply enjoy. When their enjoyment is over, they come down.
Okay.
So here we are discussing about those jivas who go there for enjoyment and come down. But those who are meant to stay there for the entire tenure, and eventually from there they go back home back to it, they are continue to worship, even whether they are in heaven or anywhere. So such kind of people names are mentioned in the previous slide. So that Prahlad, Hanuman, they are all like devoted jivas.
Okay.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you.
So Prabhuji, should I understand that among these 9 varshas, the 8 varshas are something like a Bhoga varshas, and only the 9th one, which is the Bharata Varsha, is some kind of a reformation center? Is it something like that?
I don't want to use such kind of words.
Hmm.
The 8 varshas are Bhauma Swarga. They are the transitory, the middle level heavens.
Hmm.
And Bharata Varsha is a Karma Bhumi, where people, about which we will understand about what is Bharata Varsha is all about in the future slides.
Okay.
So we cannot say reformatory. Reformatory is actually happens in the earliest planets.
Okay, Prabhuji, I understood.
Hare Krishna.
Ah.
One thing I want to understand.
Your voice is not at all audible, Prabhuji. You come close to your microphone.
Hare Krishna. Is it audible now?
Little better.
Okay. I want to understand that you said that first that Dibba Sharga, then Bhomo Sharga, and then Bharatvarsha. But
Yes.
then what about the Bile Sharga? That Bile, that below that they don't go for the exhausting their piety?
That we will discuss a little later. Bilaswarga concept will come. That is exactly not for pious people. Bilaswarga is meant for asuras. So we will discuss when we go to chapter 24.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead with the descriptions of Bharata Varsha. So kindly pay attention. The today remaining time we will only discussing about Bharata Varsha. This is the key subject matter for our entire presentation. Here we understand where are we. In Bharata Varsha, just as in Illavarta Varsha, there are many mountains and many rivers. In the previous chapter, we have seen, 16th chapter, we have seen that Illavarta Varsha has got so many set of mountains and so many rivers, etc. etc. So some mountains are Malaya, Mangalaprastha, Mainaka, Trikuta, Rishabha, Kotaka, Kollaka, Shayadri, Devagiri, Rishamuka, Srishaila, Venkata, Mahendra, Chitrakuta, Govardhana, like that. So many mountains are there in the Bhagavatam. So I have put in different color about whose mountains we kind of visited. Sayadri mountains, here we have next to our Bombay, we have Sayadri mountain, Devagiri mountain, the southern side, and Srishaila. In AP, we have Srishaila mountains, and Venkatachala, Tirupati, and Mahendragiri. We hear in Ramayana that Hanumanji jumped from Mahendragiri, etc. In that almost very close to Kanyakumari, etc. Chitrakuta mountain, where Lord Ram stayed for so many months, and then Govardhana, we have Govardhan, etc. Besides this, there are many other hills with many large and small rivers flowing from their slopes. So this is 16th verse. And then 17th and 18th verse talks about so many rivers that are there in Bharata Varsha. The inhabitants of Bharata Varsha contact these pure rivers by their minds, body, and by utterance of their names. So sometimes by remembering the river, we worship them. Sometimes going to those holy places and dipping ourselves in the rivers, we purify our body. And sometimes by uttering the mantra. In our temples, we have this mantra, Gange cha Yamuna chaiva, etc. in purifying the Achman water. So we invite all the rivers in that Kalash, etc. The very prominent rivers are Brahmaputra, Sona, Chandravati, Tamravarni. Like there so many rivers are there. I'll just read the colored one. Krutamala, Kaveri, Tungabhadra, Krishnaveni, Godavari, Narmada, Mahanandi, Yamuna, Saraswati, Gomati, and Sarayu. All these rivers, at least as per my understanding, kind of visited or heard about them many times. Sarayu is there in Ayodhya, and Gomati river, I think in Naimisharanya, Yamuna, Vrindavan, Saraswati, we hear about it in the Himalayas, Mahanandi, Narmada, Godavari is there in our South India, Andhra Pradesh is there, Bhadrachalam. I studied very close to Godavari in my BTech. I know. Krishnaveni, also in Andhra Pradesh, we have Tungabhadra, in Andhra Pradesh, we have Kaveri, Srirangam, Srirangapatnam, these are very famous, we visited many times. Tamraparni also we visited, this is there in Tamil Nadu. On the bank of Tamraparni, there are Navatirupati, there are 9 Divadeshams. So something like that. We hear about Brahmaputra and Kurtamala river also we hear in South India. So like that. Then In the 19th verse, it talks about the occupation of the people who are living in the Bharatavarsha. In Bharatavarsha, there are many destinations such as heavenly, human, and hellish are prescribed for all people because people take birth according to actions in Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So people take birth according to the modes they have accumulated in their previous births, and they perform activities in those respective modes. And those people perform activities in the mode of goodness, they'll go to heaven. Those who perform activities in the mode of passion, they take birth as among the humans. Those people who take birth, who perform activities in mode of tamas, they go to hell. Urdham gachanti sattasa, madhya tishtanti rajasa, jaganna gunavrittisya, adho tishtanti tamasa. So that verse we can remember here. All these destinations are prescribed for the self according to the quality of their actions, as indicated in the Vedas. So according to the activities, the people attain the destinations accordingly, either heavenly destination. Those who do pious activities go to heaven. Those who do sinful activities, they go to hell. Those who do somewhere in the middle, they remain as human beings, etc. And the special feature of Bharatavarsha is that liberation is then achieved. This is the place one can actually endeavor to get moksha. So in that way. So to this verse, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport about Varnashrama Dharma. The importance of Varnashrama Dharma Prabhupada talks about in this verse. But to this verse, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, taking reference from various Puranas, goes into more details about Bharatavarsha. So now let us see the Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur's commentary to this verse, wherein he says that Bharatasya Varshasya Navabedan Nishamaya. He says that in Bharatavarsha there are 9 islands. There are 9 divisions within Bharatavarsha. They are actually islands. So what are their names? Here in between there are 2 lines. I removed those 2 lines. They are known as Indradvipa, Kaseru, Tamravarna, Babastiman, Saumya, Nagadvipa, Gandharva, and Varuna. So in those 2 lines, these 8 names are mentioned. Out of the 9 islands, the 8 names are mentioned. And the 9th one is Ayam tu Navamas Tesham. The 9th one among all these 9 Dvipa, Sagar Tamruta, which is actually touching the ocean, the saltwater ocean, and the lower border. Yojana Nam Sahasrantu, Dvipo Ayam Dakshinottarat. The width of this particular 9th island, as you measure from Dakshina to Uttara, south to north, it is 1000 yojanas. The 9th bordering the ocean, which is 1000 yojanas from north to south, is known as Bharata Ayamtu or Bharata Kanda. So the understanding is that within Bharatavarsha there are 9 islands. Among the 9 islands, the 8 islands names are given. The 9th island name is directly not mentioned, but it is indicated Ayamtu. Ayamtu means this is. So because of this 9th island, the entire Varsha gets its name as Bharatavarsha. So the 9th island is known as Bharata, or it can be called as Bharata Kanda. Kanda means division. In the Ramayana we have Balakanda, Ayodhya Kanda, Aranya Kanda, Kishkinda Kanda, etc. etc. So something like that. Kanda means division, the 9 divisions. The 9th island bordering the ocean is 1000 yojanas from north to south. It is known as Bharata Kanda or Navadvipa or Sudarshan Dvipa. At different places, different names are given. It is like that. And a person, whoever is born in one of these 9 islands, is limited to only one of these divisions for the entire life. One cannot go from one island to other island in one's own life. Unless until one is so special, one cannot go from one place to other place. A common person is restricted in one island only. Sagar Samruta, the 9th one is located at the edge of the ocean. So, some reference in relation to these 9 divisions we'll see from Bhagavatam. So, Privrat Maharaj had 10 sons, out of which 3 became Paramahamsa Sadhus, Naishtika Brahmacharis. They remained in Gurukul only. The 7 came home, and Privrat Maharaj divided the Bhumandala into 7 divisions and gave to 7 of his sons. The eldest one among the 7 is Agnidra. He was given Jambudvipa, and he married Purvachitti. And through Purvachitti, he begot 9 sons, known as Nabi, Kimpurusha, Harivarsha, Ilavrta, Ramyaka, Hiranmaya, Kuru, Bhadrashva, Ketumala, etc. And he gave the 9 divisions of Jambudvipa to these 9 sons and naming them with the name of these 9 sons. That land which was given to Nabi became known as Nabi Varsha, which was given to Kimpurusha became known as Kimpurusha Varsha, which was given to Hari became known as Hari Varsha, which was given to Ilavurta, it became known as Ilavurta Varsha, La Rammeka Varsha, Irannaya Varsha, like that. And these 9 sons eventually married the 9 daughters of King Meru. So their names are Meru Devi, Pratirupa, etc. So Nabi married Meru Devi. Nabi was ruling Nabi Varsha and he married Meru Devi. And in due course of time, by Lord's blessings, the Supreme Lord himself became their son. He was known as Rishabhdeva. He married Jayanti, who was the daughter of Indra. And Rishabhdeva, when Lord Rishabhdeva was ruling this Nabi Varsha, it became known as Ajnaba Varsha. As long as Nabi was ruling, it was known as Nabi Varsha. When Rishabhdeva became the ruler of this entire area, it became known as Ajnaba Varsha. And Rishabhdeva had 100 sons. Out of 100 sons, 81 became Brahmanas, perfect Brahmanas who will perform all the yajnas, etc. And remaining 9 became 9 Paramahamsa Sannyasis who are known as Navayogendras. About them we hear in the 11th canto, 2nd chapter onwards. The Navayogendras come in that section. Kavi, Havi, Antariksha, Prabuddha, they instruct King Nimi in various aspects of Bhagavad Dharma. And 81 plus 90 are over. Out of the 10, of course, among the 100, the eldest one is Bharata Maharaj. He was a great yogi with excellent qualities, because of which the Ajnaba Varsha, eventually when he became the king or monarch of this entire area, it became known as Bharata Varsha. Previously, it was Nabi Varsha, then Ajnaba Varsha. Because of Bharata Maharaj, it became known as Bharata Varsha. And the remaining 9 sons of Rishabhdev, they became subservient of Bharat Maharaj and they ruled the 9 islands of Bharatavarsha. So within Bharatavarsha also, there are 9 islands and these 9 brothers kind of taking the responsibility of these 9 islands and reporting to their elder brother, that is Bharat Maharaj, who is the monarch of the entire Bhumandala that time. So their names are Kushavarta, Ilavarta, Brahmavarta, Malaya, Ketu, Bhadrasena, Indrasuka, Vidarbha, and Kikada, etc. So it is like that. So after Bharata married Panchajana, daughter of Vishwarupa, and they gave birth to 5 sons, headed by Sumati, etc. And it went on like that. So here it says that the 9 sons of Lord Rishabhadev ruled the 9 islands of Bharatavarsha. It is mentioned in the 11th canto, chapter 2, verse number 19. So before starting the conversation of the 9 Navayogendras with Maharaj Nimi, so Bhagavatam introduces who are these Navayogendras. So there it says that Rishabhadev had 100 sons, out of 181 became Brahmanas. So 9 are the Navayogendras, the eldest one is Bharata, and Bharata had 9 brothers. So there it says that Tesham Nava, and those 9 brothers are Bharata Maharaj, Nava Dvipa Patayo. They are the lords of the 9 islands of Bharatavarsha. Asya Samantata. It is known like that. They were known as the leaders of the 9 islands of Bharatavarsha. So it is mentioned in the 11th canto, not in the 5th canto. So that's how we can take the reference from Bhagavatam also. There are 9 Varshas, there are 9 islands in Bharatavarsha, and they were ruled by the 9 younger brothers of Bharat Maharaj. So His Holiness Danavir Goswami Maharaj, in his video known as Vedic Cosmology, he showed these 9 islands in Bharatavarsha. This is the Bharatavarsha, this is the Himalayas mountain. So within Bharatavarsha, we have 9 divisions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are the 9 divisions of the entire Bharatavarsha, which are surrounded by ocean. So that's why they are called as islands. But there is a small correction here. The 9 islands are not like this. They are not divided like horizontally. This is another picture of the same thing. But their divisions are not like this. The divisions are like this. Because we have already seen that the 9th division, which is known as Bharatakanda or Bharata, is located on the border of the ocean, the border, this border, extreme southern side, and its width is 1000 yojanas from north to south. So this is the northern side, and this is the southern side. From here to here, it is 1000 yojanas. So here we have total width of Bharatavarsha is 9000 yojanas, as we studied in the beginning. Every Varsha is about 9000 yojanas in width. and there are 9 islands. It is mentioned one island width is 1,000 yojanas. So as a simple understanding, all the other 8 islands are also of 1,000 each in width. So the divisions are like this. The blue lines indicate the ocean, which is separating the land into different islands. So this is the first island, second island, third island, fourth one, fifth one, sixth one, seventh one, eighth one. The last one is ninth island. This is the ninth island. So which is known as of now, we know it as Bharatakanda. The entire thing is known as Bharatavarsha, and this is Bharatakanda, the 9th division. So now, the Vishnu Purana goes into the details of this 9th division. So till now, we discussed about the 9 divisions of Bharatavarsha. Now specifically discuss the details about the 9th division, which is there on the southern side of Bharatavarsha. So Vishnu Purana says, Purve Kirata Yasyante Pashchime Yavana Smruta Purva Deshadikaschaiva Kamarupa Nivasina Ostra Kalinga Magada Dakshinatyascha Krishnasha Maruka Malavascha. So in the eastern direction there are Kiratas, Purve Kirata. In the western direction there are Yavanas, Yasyante Pashchime Yavana. And then in the eastern direction there are kingdoms known as Kamarupa and Kalinga, Ostra, Magadha. Kamarupa, Ostra, Kalinga and Magadha. These are the various kingdoms that are there in the eastern direction of the Bharatakanda. And the southern side there are kingdoms known as Maruka and Malava. Marukascha, Malavascha. So these are the different provinces in the southern direction. So these are some of the details which are given in the Vishnu Purana about the 9th division. And then the same Vishnu Purana further says, Chetvari Bharate Varshe Yugantara Mahamune Kritam Treta Dwaparancha Kalischa Anyatrana Kvachit. So this is about Bharata Varsha. So this shloka is about Bharata Varsha. This is not the next shloka. This is another shloka from Vishnu Purana. It says that in Bharata Varsha, there are the 4 yugas. Chetvari Bharate Varshe Yuga Antara. The distinction of the 4 yugas is seen in Bharata Varsha. What are the 4 yugas? Kruta Yuga or Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. They are the 4 yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali. And then, which do not exist elsewhere. Anyatra na kvachit. Other than Bharata Varsha, the 4 yugas do not have any existence anywhere else in the entire universe. Only in Bharata Varsha we have the distinction of Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali. And as we read from Bhagavatam first canto, in Satya Yuga Dharma is there in 4 legs, in Treta Dharma is in 3 legs, Dwapara 2 legs, Kali 1 leg. And then Satya Yuga lasts for 4 times the time period of Kali Yuga. This lasts for 3 times the time period of Kali Yuga. This lasts for the 2 times the time period of Kali Yuga. And Kali Yuga lasts for 4,32,000 years. That we know. And also we understand from Puranas that in Satya Yuga, whoever takes birth, they live for 1,00,000 years. In Treta Yuga, 10,000 years. Dwapara Yuga, 1,000 years. In Kali Yuga, we start with 100 years. It is said that by the end of Kali Yuga, it will be reduced by 1 more 0. That is, we come to 10 years. So in 10 years, at the end of Kali Yuga, they see entire life. So then again Satya Yuga will start. So 1, 10, 10, 10, 10, gradually multiplied, gradually increasing. 10 to 100, 100 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000, 10,000 to 100,000. That means in Satya Yuga at the beginning they have lifespan of 100,000. By the end of Satya Yuga they will have 10,000. And with which Treta Yuga starts 10,000 to 1,000, 1,000 to 100, 100 to 10. Something like that we can understand. And right now kindly remember, previously we have seen that in the remaining 8 varshas, they will live for 10,000 years. That 10,000 years is the lifespan of the people in Bharata Varsha. And it is said that they will experience the happiness of Treta Yuga. So whatever happiness the Treta Yuga people experience in Bharata Varsha, in other Varshas they experience the same happiness with the same lifespan always. That means the other 8 Varshas have Treta Yuga only for the rest of eternity. They don't see Satya Yuga or Dwapara Yuga or Kali Yuga atmosphere. They only have Treta Yuga atmosphere. So that is how we can understand. And then Vayu Purana says, Bharatasya Varshasya Navabedam Nibodata Sagarantarita Jnayastu Agamya Parasparam. the 9 divisions of Bharata are individually separated by the ocean. And one cannot go from one to other. Tu agamya parasparam. A normal person cannot go from one island to the other island. Unless until a person is so special, they cannot go. And Srila Prabhupada quotes Siddhanta Shiromani in Chaitanya Charitamrita Antelila, where he talks about the 9 divisions of Bharata Varsha. So, iti Bharata Varsha Madhye. Within Bharata Varsha, there are 9 kandas. They are known as Aindra, Kaseru, Tamprapanna, Gavastiman, Kumarika, Naga, Saumya, Varuna, and Gandharva. The 8 names matches to Vishnu Purana. The only one name which is said in Vishnu Purana as Bharata, it is said here as Kumarika. So that's why I put in bold. So the same thing can be called as Kumarika Dvipa also. Then Markandeya Purana says, Karma is not enjoined anywhere else. The 9th island is surrounded by water. Matlab, karma is enjoined only in Bharata Varsha. In Bharata Varsha only one specifically accumulate karma, either piety or impiety. That's why it is called as Karma Bhumi. The 9th island is not surrounded by water in all 4 directions. It measures 1000 yojanas from south to north. And here we see the people, mixture of both Mlechas and Aryas. Some are civilized and not so civilized. And they predominate in certain parts. At some places, Aryans are prominent. At other places, Mlechas are prominent. And this place is known as Karma Bhumi. And this place bestows everything according to one's Papa or Punya. According to one's activities, one gets the subsequent results. So these are the various qualities of this Bharata Varsha according to Markandeya Purana. And then to this verse, Srila Vishwanath Thakur in his purport says, Prabhuji will take questions a little later. We'll just complete this section so that the theme continues. So this takes place only in Bharata Varsha. What takes place? Whatever is mentioned in the translation or in the verse, and only in an area whose dimension is about 1000 yojanas. Specifically, Sri Chakravarti says that whatever details that are mentioned in this shloka are specifically spoken in relation to Bhartakanda. The goals manifest according to the qualities of one's action, which are known as dharmic activities or adharmic activities. And the results will take place unavoidably because they are said in the Vedas. Dharmic people will go to Swarga, adharmic people will go to Naraka, and people who perform mixed activities will take birth among humans. If one cannot accomplish liberation, liberation appears on its own. The special feature of Bharata Varsha is that Bharata Varsha has facilities favorable to accomplish liberation. In other places, there is intense happiness. So because of which people may not work hard to attain liberation. But in Bharata Varsha, the facilities are not so favorable for so much enjoyment, but they are favorable for working hard for attaining liberation. This is the special prerequisite of Bharata Varsha. So this Bharata Varsha can award Sahajya Mukti and also Vaikuntha Mukti. All are awarded in Bharata Varsha. So then, after 19th verse, starting from 20th verse till the end of the chapter, those people who by performing pious activities, who have gone to heaven, either Bhauma Swarga or Divya Swarga, they know that as soon as their piety is over, they have to come down to Bharata Varsha again. So those people who specifically know about this, they actually glorify Bharata Varsha because they understand that in these upper places there is so much enjoyment because of which they will not be able to perform bhakti. But in Bharata Varsha there is enjoyment but not so much. So Bharata Varsha is favorable for practicing bhakti. So in that context, they actually offer prayers. And they say in those prayers, Bharata Varsha is suitable for service to Lord Mukunda. And they are asking that what kind of pious activities the residents of Bharata Varsha have performed, as a result of which they have got birth in Bharata Varsha, where they could serve Lord Mukunda, where they could practice bhakti. And they say that the transient residents in heaven, they are talking about their own current situation. Currently, they are in Bhauma Swarga. They are enjoying the 10,000 lifespan with all the opulences. They say that the transient residence in heaven is not at all proper because there is no continuous remembrance of the Lord. If at all they have the remembrance of the Lord, but that is carried away by the excessive enjoyment of the senses that is available in this Bhauma Swarga. And then they say that a moment stay in Bharata Varsha is better than the residence in Brahmaloka even for the entire day of Brahma. Why so? Because people on Bharata can attain Vaikuntha very easily and very quickly. So people who live in Brahmaloka, they need to perform austerities for the entire day of Brahma. But in Bharata Varsha, if they can perform austerities for one lifetime, they can attain perfection. Because the lifespan in Brahmaloka, it is one kalpa. The lifespan in Bharata Varsha, it is one lifespan. So if one can perform austerities for one lifespan, they can go back to Godhead. Even an example is shown in Bhagavatam 9th canto. So Katvanga Maharaj, being requested by the Devatas, he went to heaven and he was fighting on the side of the Devatas. And eventually, by the request of Devatas, Mother Parvati begot a son through Lord Shiva, that was known as Kartikeya, and who later on became the commander-in-chief of the Devatas. Till then, till Kartikeya was born, Katvanga Maharaj was acting as commander-in-chief of the Devatas. And when Kartikeya came, they requested Katvanga Maharaj to retreat and go back. And then they said that, my dear king, we are very much happy by your support. Please ask for whatever benefit you want, whatever blessings you want. Then Katvanga asked, how much more lifespan I have in my quota? They said, 1 muhurta. So then Katvanga Maharaj said that, please transport me to my home, Bharata Varsha. Then immediately Devatas transported him to Bharata Varsha. Having come to Bharata Varsha, sitting in a suitable auspicious place, he meditated on the Supreme Lord. He kind of remembered the Lord's wonderful pastimes. He did smaranam on the Lord's pastime, Nama Rupa Kunlila. Then with 1 Murta Smaranam, he went back to Godhead. He could have done this in the heaven, but he knows heaven is not a proper place for this. So he came down to Bharata Varsha and attained perfection. So that is the glory of Bharata Varsha. And then they say that one should not accept residence in Brahmaloka if there are no rivers of Lord's sweet topics are continuously discussed. If Krishna Katha is not continuously flowing, one should not accept residence in Brahmaloka. If there is no association of devotees, one should not accept residence in Brahmaloka. If there are no great festivals of Sankirtana, one should not accept birth in Brahmaloka. If there is no continuous chanting of Lord's holy names, one should not accept birth in Brahmaloka. That is what they say. And finally, they say that if at all we have any remnants of our pious activities, any piety is still there in our quota, in our account, from performing so many Vedic sacrifices, by chanting the Vedic mantras, by performing various charitable acts, may those pious credits give us birth in Bharata Varsha with the remembrance of the Lord. So they say that somehow or other, because of our piety, we have come to this Bhauma Swarga or Divya Swarga. If at all some more piety that is there in our quota. So as a result of that piety, let us take birth in Bharata Varsha with the remembrance of Lord or Bhakti. So that by practicing Bhakti one full life, we can go back to Godhead. So this is the glorious nature of Bharata Varsha. So, yes, Prabhu, you have raised your hand. Quickly ask the question because we have some more points to discuss. We need to discuss this section today. Your voice is not audible, not clear.
Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Yes.
Prabhu.
I just want to understand, actually in between my network got disconnected. I may miss some point. So maybe I am asking something which you have already explained. I just want to clarify that in the initial stage, when you start the description of Bharata Varsha, you referred Vishwanath Chakraborty Thakur's commentary of description of the different islands in the Bharata Varsha.
Yes.
And then later on, you have
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, meanwhile,
Yes, Prabhu.
I would like to understand this glories that has been described. Is it referring to only the Bharata Khanda, among the 9 islands within the Bharata Varsha, specific to Bharata Khanda, or any of the islands?
Bharata Varsha gets its name because of Bharata Khanda. So the glories are in general to Bharata Varsha and specifically about Bharata Khanda.
Okay, so if we understand that the Sankirtana movement is right now of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's is in Bharatakanda or any of those different islands also?
That I don't know, Prabhuji.
Okay, very good.
Hare Krishna. Sorry, Prabhuji has gone out of connection, it seems. So anyone else has queries? Otherwise, we'll go ahead.
Prabhuji, some of the slides we were not able to actually capture the shot. So if I can request it, is it do you share these slides or do we have an access for this or how do we do it?
Sorry, Prabhuji, I will not share the slides, but you can ask your coordinators about the videos if they can share the videos. We will have all the slides.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead. We have a few more minutes at our disposal. The depiction of Bharatakanda. How does this Bharatakanda look like? So we have seen the special significant nature, characteristics, people, activities, the different kingdoms of Bharatakanda we have seen. Now, how does it look like? The map of this Bharatakanda was first discovered by Sri Tiruvenkata Ramanuja Jiyar, who was born in 1805, lived all the way up to 1882, based on the shlokas of Mahabharata, from the section known as Sri Bhishma Parva, Jambukanda Vinirnaya Parva, and 5th chapter. So these are the 3 verses which Sri Tiruvenkata Ramanuja Jiyar are referred. And when I refer to Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute Critical Edition of Mahabharata, which is there in English. Otherwise, the regular Mahabharata are always in Hindi. I have looked for English that I found in Bori edition. So in that Bori edition, I found the same 3 verses in the 6th chapter, verse number 12, verse number 15, and verse number 16. And we will discuss about them elaborately. So this is the portrait of Sri Tiruvenkata Ramanuja Jiyar, who was born in Maduramangalam. After taking up sannyasa, he made his residence in Perambudur, the birthplace of Ramanujacharya. Even today also we have a small ashram and also the temple of Sri Tiruvenkata Ramanuja Jiyar in Sri Perambudur. So he was born in 1805 and 1882, he lived there. And in his ashram, this is the portrait we can see. This is another portrait. This is one old photo and this is the recent photo. I mean, some is youthful photo. So these are the verses which he referred to. It says that Sudarshanam Pravakshami Dvipam Te Kurunandana Parimandalo Maharaja Dviposau Chakra Samsita. This Bharatakanda is called Sudarshana Dvipa since it looks beautiful to the eyes of the onlookers. Sudarshanam, it looks very wonderful to look at. Sudarshanam Pravakshami Dvipam Te Kurunandana. So these are the verses spoken by Sanjaya to Dhritarashtra in the Bhishma Parva. So just before the beginning of Bhagavad Gita section. I think Bhagavad Gita starts from 28th chapter or something like that. Currently we are seeing at 5th or 6th chapter. So being circular, it looks like the disc of the Lord. Parimandalo Maharaja Dviposau Chakra Samsita. This particular Bharatakanda Sudarshan Dvipa looks circular, like the disc of the Lord, as you see from the top. It is attached to the cyclic time in the form of disc, preceded by God Sudarshana. So because in Bharata Varsha and also in Bharatakanda, we have the changes of Satya, Treta, Dwapara, Kali. That is how it is attached to the cyclic time. This is Lord Sudarshana. Here is Sudarshan Chakra. And the word which is there in the shloka known as Parimandala. The meaning of Parimandala is taken as Sudarshan Dvipa is in the form of a globe. Since all the four corners of this Bharatakanda is rounded like the bale fruit. This Sudarshan Dvipa from the top looks like a disc or circular, but when you go closer, it looks like a bale fruit. That's why the word Parimandala is used. Parimandala in Sanskrit can be a sphere, can be a circle, can be a disc, can be a vrutta. But according to the context, we need to take the meaning. So this is the globe form of this Bharatakanda. Then the next shloka says, Ruksha Vrukshai Pushpa Palopetai Sampanna Dana Dandyavan Lavanena Samudrena Samantat Parivarita. It says that it is full of trees. This entire Sudarshana Dvipa or Bharatakanda is full of trees covered with flowers and fruits. and with crops of various kinds. So variety of crops are growing here in this place, and with many other rich things. It is surrounded on all sides with salt ocean. This globe is surrounded by ocean on all directions. That's why it is called as island, Dvipa. And now coming close to it. Yatacha Purusha Pashe Darshane Mukamatmana. Evam Sudarshana Dvipo Drishyate Chandramandale. It says that as a person can see his own face in a mirror, Yatacha Purusha Pashet Adarshe Mukamatmana. In Sanskrit, Adarshe means mirror that will show your face. That is called Adarshe or mirror. Just like every morning after taking bath, we see our face in the mirror not to put tilak. Similarly, when we see the nature of this Sudarshan Dvipa is viewed from the moon. Evam Sudarshana Dvipo Drishyate Chandramandale. Accepting the moon as the mirror, when we see the Bharatakanda, how does it look like? Just like when we see our face in the mirror, what is there in our face we can see in the mirror. Same way now the moon is acting like the mirror and Bharatakanda is seeing himself in the mirror. Dviramshe Pipalas Tatra Dviramshesha Shashumahan Sarvaushadi Samavyapa Sarvato Paribrahmita. It says that Dvir Amshe, there are two portions of Bharata Varsha. Sorry, Bharatakanda. Out of the two portions, one Amsha, one portion looks like Pipalas. So half of it appears in the form of a big people leaf. And Dviram Shesha Shashomahan. And other half appears like the rabbit accompanied by so many small people leaves. So just like we see in the mirror, the front portion appears to be like the big people leaves. So combination of people leaves. And the back portion appears to be like a big rabbit surrounded by so many other small people leaves. And the people leaves and the front portion and the rabbit and the back portion are surrounded by different variety of vegetation. Sarva Aushadi. Aushadi means different kind of plants. Samavyapa Sarvata Paribrahmita. And all these locations are surrounded by so many vegetation. In the image, they appears to be like the vegetation. Apastato Anya Vigneya Esha Sankshepa Uchate. Other than these portions, the rest of Bharatakanda is filled with water. It is surrounded by water. So now, Sri Thiruvenkata Ramanujaji sketched a drawing on one big rabbit on one side and a set of people leaves on the other side as per the above shlokas of Mahabharata. So this is rabbit surrounded by small people leaves, etc., and surrounded by some vegetation here and there. And here there are big people leaves, combination of big people leaves. But Sri Thiruvenkata Ramanujaji could not understand what it is. So later on, eventually when it is turned around, he understood what it is. And he was born in 1805. He lived all the way up to 1882. That means he must have done this in the later part of his life, maybe around 1875 or something like that. So by then we have world map. So when the same thing is superimposed upon the world map, the modern day world map, so we can see how does it matches. And as per the description, the big rabbit and set of people leaves surrounded by so much vegetation is only land portion. The remaining all is filled with water. So that is what we can see in the modern world map. So this is the image of Bharatakanda or Sudarshana Dvipa or Kumarika Dvipa as per Mahabharata. So this is Jambudvipa about which we were discussing till now. Within Jambudvipa we have Bharata Varsha, and within Bharata Varsha there are 9 islands, and the 9th island is Bharatakanda, that is the spherical globe known as Parimandala, which had one side a big rabbit surrounded by so many people leaves, and the other side it has 2 big people leaves. That is our modern world. So this is the image drawn by Sri Tiruvenkata Ramanujiyar. Even today also it is there in Sri Perambudur in his ashram. Of course, he draw the entire image of the entire universe. Here is Mount Meru, Dhruvaloka, and Surya, Chandra, and all the planets. Here different divisions of entire Jambudvipa and other islands, etc. There, these are lower 7 planets and upper planets and the 7 layers of the universe. How eclipse happens, Surya's chariot, the different devatas, and here is the image which he draw. The rabbit, small people lives, big people lives. This is the image which he draw long back, many years back.
Can you please put that slide before one, this one?
So there are few more references from Surya Siddhanta. Just to close the subject matter properly, it says the Surya Siddhanta in one chapter, one verse says that as the shape of the earth, that is Bharatakanda, is spherical, people in each place think themselves to be uppermost, but the globe of earth is situated in ether as it is perceived by our eye. What then is its upper and lower side? Since it is a globular structure and the principle of gravity is toward the center of the earth, so everywhere people standing anywhere on the surface of the earth, they will feel that they are on the top side. That is what we feel. We also feel we are on the top side. The Americans also feel the top side, and Europeans, Africans, and the people who are living in the North Pole, South Pole, everyone sees they are on the top side. That is because of gravity principle. So this is the line of equator. So now the first day or first day, I think we discussed about sun's movement around Mount Meru, and there while discussing about the different divisions of Jambudvipa, I think in the previous class we discussed about the Sukadeva Goswami's directions. So this is east, this is west, this is north, this is south, and this is true north and this is true south, which is upper side is true north, bottom side is true south. So if you see this picture, so this is line of equator and this is North Pole and this is South Pole. The same globe in Jambudvipa. This is the entire Jambudvipa. Here we have the Earth globe. This is South Pole and this is North Pole. The direction towards North Pole is true north. The direction towards South Pole is true south. That means the direction towards bottom of the universe is true south. Toward the top of the universe is true north. And that day we discussed that here in this room I said this is east for me. Every day morning I see sun rising here. This is west, and this is true north, this is true south, and sun is there during midday. This is this side. That midday direction, Sukadeva Goswami is calling it as south, and the midnight direction, the sun is exactly below my feet, that is called by Sukadeva Goswami as the north. So in this globular structure of earth, you can see this is the line of equator, and sun is moving on a plane which is on the line of equator of the earth. So during the midday, during afternoon, the sun is located here. So India is here. In India, I stand here. I see sun above my head. So basically, I show you picture. So this is the earth globe, and this is the orbit of the sun, which is there on the plane of line of equator. So in India, I cannot show you picture here. For example, similar to India, I am standing like this. The sun travel will be like this. At the noon time, the sun will be above my head. So I see it. But for a person standing in the North Pole, he sees sun is traveling around him. For him, it is traveling like this. So in the 3D universe, so we have seen that Bhumandala is exactly in the middle and sun is moving like this. So sun is moving like this. So for a person, either he is in the Satyaloka or in the Dhruvaloka or here on the North Pole, he sees sun is circumambulating around him. But the same person, when he comes to India in this earth globe, he sees, correct, for example, I am standing here like this. The sun will be revolving like this. That means, so this is the Bhumandala. For earth globe here, the person is standing like this. But the same Bhumandala in relation to the perception of the person who is there on the line of equator. So this is the earth globe and the person is standing like this. And sun is revolving like this. So this is my experience here in Mumbai, because Mumbai is very close to the NF equator. And my experience of sun traveling is rising here, going upward and setting here and going downward and coming up, rising here. But in the 3D universe, Earth globe is like this, sun is always like this. But on the Earth globe, I am standing like this because I am close to line of equator. If you go down South Pole, I will be standing upside down. And there I see sun is revolving in the counterclockwise direction. So this will be the experience of different people on the Earth. You see. So the north one sees, the North Pole wala sees sun is revolving around him. The person on the line of equator sees sun is moving above his head. And person who's standing at 60th degree latitude and 30th degree latitude, this person will see sun is moving like this. And this person will also see sun is moving at a 30 degrees angle. He sees sun is moving at 60 degrees angle. And similarly, one is at 30, other one is at 60. Again, they see like this. And similarly, the person is at 0th degree latitude on the line of equator. He sees sun is moving like this. On the Earth globe, we have different perceptions of sun's movement. But in the 3D universe, it is actually moving on just above the plane of Bhumandala. But since we are living in a globular structure, we will have different experience according to our place. So this is a Pratyaksha Pramana to say that Bharatakanda is a spherical object. The Shabda Pramana is from Mahabharata, and this is Pratyaksha Pramana. And some mathematical calculations, scientific observations. The scientists have said, have measured the diameter of our Earth globe is 12,742 kilometers, the mean diameter. The diameter measured at the equator, 12,756. Diameter measured between two poles, 12,713. So basically, diameter measured at the equator is this diameter. And diameter measured between poles is this diameter, like this, from here to here. So something like that. Or the mean diameter is average of multiple diameters. And according to scriptures, according to Bhagavatam, Bharatakanda is the 9th part of Bharatavarsha. So width of Bharatavarsha is 9,000 yojanas. The 9th part is 1,000 yojanas. And 1 yojana is equal to 8 miles, 8,000 miles. 1 mile is equal to 1.609 kilometers. That is 12,872 kilometers. So this is approximate number and this is measured number. Do you see both are matching? 12,742, not necessarily be too exact, but they are very close to each other. So what modern science is describing the measurements about our Earth globe is what is called as Bharatakanda in our scriptures. Surya Siddhanta gives the diameter of our Earth globe as 1600 yojanas. So Puranas say it is 1000 yojanas, but Surya Siddhanta says 1600 yojanas. The understanding is diameter is the distance between the lower part to the upper part of the sphere along with its surface. When a person walks over the surface of the earth from one side to other side, from bottom to top, or from left side to right side, whatever distance is covered by that person is called as diameter of that particular spherical object. It is the most practical way of measuring the diameter. You walk and find out what is the measurement. So this is equal to the half of the total circumference. For a spherical object, this is the half circumference. So from the mathematical formula, circumference is equal to 2 pi r and diameter is equal to 2r, which is equal to c by 2 c by pi. So the Earth's actual diameter will be, so 1600 is half the circumference. The full circumference is 2 times 1600 divided by pi, which is 1019 yojanas, which is Puranic number. So it is like that. So this is how we can see from various references. So what we are calling as Bharatakanda is our Earth globe. So some more scriptural measurements, scriptural imports from 4th canto 25th chapter in relation to Puranjana pastime. It is mentioned that searching for a suitable place to live, Puranjana, after wandering the earth, saw on the southern ridge of the Himalayas a city with 9 gates, which he understood had all good qualities. The understanding is that having traveled all over the Bhumandala, the Puranjana finds a human body consisting of 9 gates. Human body is having 9 holes. The 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, anus and rectum. so etc. Navadvara Pure Dehi. And that Jiva, the Puranjana, understood that the human body in the Bharata Varsha, which is located at the southern side of Himalayas, is the best place to get enjoyment and attain perfection or liberation. So this is the glory of getting human birth in Bharata Varsha. And which is also mentioned by Prahlad Maharaj, which says that the wise person should practice Bhakti Yoga in his life, starting from the very youth, Kaumara. Human birth is very rare and it is transient, but effective for the practice of Bhakti. It means, thus, starting at the Kumara age, 1 to 5 years itself, one should practice Bhagavad Dharma, consisting of hearing and chanting, having taken birth in the land of Bharata. Hiya stands for, the Hiya in this verse stands for in Bharata Varsha. Having taken birth in Bharata Varsha, one should start practicing Bhakti, starting from the year 1 onwards. Because getting human birth in Bharata Varsha is very rare and it will not last long. And the best out of the bad bargain is starting Bhakti from age 1 itself, Kaumara. So these are the various different aspects of our Bharata Varsha. Within Bharata Varsha, the 9 islands, and especially we talked about Bharata Khanda, various qualities, characteristics of the people and activities, and we also saw that how does this Bharata Khanda look like from Mahabharata, and also supporting statements from Surya Siddhanta, other Puranas, the modern scientific calculations. So this is what we can understand from Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, pranams.
Yes, Prabhu.
Just to again reconfirm on this, within the Bharata Varsha, the 9 islands are there, and out of this, 8 islands look linear when looked from the top, and only the 9th one is what is Bharata Varsha, Bharata Khanda, which is looking spherical. Is that the understanding?
We don't know what is the shape of the other 8 islands.
Okay.
So the 9th island, though its territory looks like a bow-shaped area, but
Yeah.
out of the entire bow-shaped area, the remaining land also is submerged by the ocean. Only the spherical structure is left. So what we have in that bow-shaped Bharata Khanda is the spherical earth only. So in that way we can understand, we can all, that's how we have to understand.
So the other 8 islands are not visible at the moment, if that's what we should understand also.
Visible, not visible, we don't know. As of now, we only know they are there. Where are they? We don't know. How are they? We don't know. But their location we know. With our physical eye, we can't see them as of now. We don't know.
I understand. So within the Bharata Varsha, what is visible to our human naked eye is only the Bharata Khanda, which is a spherical form.
Ah, yes.
Hare
Yes,
Krishna
Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
Ah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, this Bharata Khanda, the globe, it revolves around it, and I mean, is it like it is stationary, or what is it like?
So for your kind information, in the last 3 sessions, we never talked about anything revolving, whether it is Bharata Khanda or Bharata Varsha or Jambudipa or Bhumandala. I don't know as of now whether it is revolving or not. Let us see if Bhagavatam reveals to us in the future sessions.
Okay, Prabhuji. Okay.
As of now, we only know there is something called as Bhuloka, which is also called as Bhumandala, in which Priyavrat Maharaj divided into 7 islands, out of which one is known as Jambudipa, within which there are 9 Varshas, one is known as Bharata Varsha. Within that, there are 9 islands, one is known as Bharata Khanda. That Bharata Khanda is our Earth globe. That much only we know.
Okay. Yes, Prabhu. Correct.
Anyone else? Any queries? Already we are late, but still.
Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna. Am I audible?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes. I just want to understand one thing, that before coming into the description of Bharata Varsha, you explained that there is a Lanka. Lanka, one and another island, which is outside the Bharata Varsha.
Yes.
So at the south, exactly south of the Bharata Varsha. And now we know that in the Bharata Khanda, just below the what we know, the Bharat, India, that there is also Sri Lanka. So is that Sri Lanka and that Lanka is different, or?
Yeah, both are different. Sri Lanka is Sri Lanka, Lanka is Lanka.
Okay. Okay,
Lanka is the
so
abode of
Ramayana,
Lanka is the abode of Rakshasas. Sri Lanka is the abode of human beings, the residents of Bharatavarsha.
okay,
Or
so,
Bharatkhanda.
and reference to Ramayana, it is the which Lanka? This Sri Lanka or that Lanka?
Lanka only, it is not Sri Lanka. Ramayana talks about Lanka.
Lanka. Okay, okay, that is another island, a separate island, different, altogether different from. So the bridge has been made. So the bridge has been made from this Bharatakhanda to that Lanka.
Yes. From Bharatkhanda to Lanka. Yes, perfect.
Lanka. Okay, okay. So it is not that like what we know that NASA has taken the picture of that below the island, that all that things are actually not bona fide.
No, it can be bona fide. We'll see that. We'll discuss about it later on. The bridge is starting from Rameshwaram. It is going to Lanka via Sri Lanka. What is the problem?
Okay, 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 okay.
Right.
But it is in a different planet, completely different planet. Okay, okay.
Sorry, I did not say whether it is planet or not. It is surrounding Jambudvipa.
Surrounding Jambudvipa, yes, different island, not planet, island. Let
Lanka
use
is a
the term
different
island.
island.
Yes, yes. Okay, okay. Thank you so much.
Correction. Thank you. Okay, Prabhuji, we'll stop for today here. So thank you very much for joining us.